Start again. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? You all well? We have to have you all muted for the sake of a technological catastrophe, because it'll all just go everywhere if we unmute you all. We might do it at the very end. Listen, I'm Mick Fortune, and this is
Aileen Lambert.
And thanks a million for coming to the fourth version of the login sessions. We're going to run until about 9:30 or a shade after. Now, we've been known to run until 11:30, so we probably, Aileen said no tonight to this, right?
The girls are minding the dog, you know. I don't know who's minding the girls.
Yeah. So we'll run to that time. We have to have a password system just for security to make sure we can see everyone. And we're asking anyone that comes on that we see their video, so that we know that they're a real person and we get a good look at their face. So Angela Murphy and Margaret Murphy, whenever you're on, throw up your video there so we know that we are. They can see us. So listen, we're here because of the Arts Department of Wexford County Council. Liz Burns commissioned myself and Aileen to run the login sessions for 5 weeks, and it's an idea basically to bring people together for a course of weeks to experience new things and to just communicate. And it's been a massive success since the outset, because we've not only because we're coming from Wexford, so there's obviously a strong Wexford connection, but also the fact that we're connecting with people from Dublin, Donegal, and West Clare, the Aran Islands. But what's really, really special for us is we're connecting with people, huge amount of people over in Newfoundland, which is almost like it's County Newfoundland now, as we call it, the 33rd county. And every night we come on, there's always a good contingent from Newfoundland. Yeah. So it's brilliant to see. There's also a great contingent always from the States, good following from the States as well, and from Canada. Notice the way I said Canada and Newfoundland, two separate breaths there. It's naturally in us. And here's a woman I'm going to admit now, Helen Gaynor's coming in now. Okay. Just one thing to bear in mind, myself and Aileen are looking at a couple of screens here. So if you see our eyes casting left and right, we're not disconnected. We're just kind of doing other business, right? So, but listen, the idea is tonight we will look. I suppose the reason why we picked tonight on the theme of birds and the coming of news was because today is the 23rd of April, and my grandmother home in Ballygarrett, which is about 30 miles away from where we are now on the coast of Wexford, she always said that today was the last chance. The cuckoo came today. She'd come on the last week of April. Now, she was must have been very particular with her time. She knew exactly the last week to come, but she always said that the cuckoo would come in the last week of April, and when she'd come, she would, we know when she'd come, but it meant if you were putting in your oats or your spuds or any crops at all in, and you heard the cuckoo, it meant you were too late, and you get the name of a cuckoo farmer. Or if your oats grew, to be called cuckoo oats, or if your potatoes grew, to be called cuckoo spuds. And basically the belief was that they would never thrive, they wouldn't grow. That was the kind of idea. Now, whether there's any truth in it or not, I don't know. I sometimes I doubt it, but that's the date. And so we picked that. And even before we start, actually, I want to just even read you something. We had a little verse at home, and it said, the cuckoo, this is from my mother, the cuckoo comes in April, she sings her song in May, in June she whistles her tune, and in July she flies away. And that's the version that we had. Now, other people would have that version where it says she changes her tune and she flies away. But Aileen's father had a version the other night.
And his was a little bit different. The cuckoo comes in April, she sings her song in May. In June, she changes her tune. In July, she gets ready to fly. And in August, go she must.
Yeah, this was different. Yeah. He learned it in school in the 1950s up here in Ballindagan. So I've always been amazed about how we have picked calendar dates or the arrival of a bird or certain dates within the year to base especially country people, to base the growing of crops around, or the cutting of hay, or the digging of potatoes, or the dates to get your spuds in. Those dates were always really important. And funny, that went over to Newfoundland as well. I know that I'm going to unmute Kenneth Wickens here for 1 second, right? Kenneth.
How's it going?
How are you doing, boy?
It's kind.
Do you grow spuds, do you?
I don't know. Like I say, I don't have much of a green thumb, but
I'm using the wrong fella then, have I?
I'll be the wrong one for that one, yeah. There's some fellas around here that grow stuff now, but I won't tell you what they grow.
Yeah.
It's legal now, so.
Did you ever see them putting in the spuds for Victoria weekend?
I've seen fellas put spuds in. Yeah. I know that they used to cut the eyes after spuds, but like I say, myself doing it myself, I never did it, no.
Yeah. Yeah, any of my Newfoundland friends, because we couldn't believe it when we were in Newfoundland last year, we'd have the date of the 17th of March for to get our potatoes in, while over there it came across around Victoria Day. Wasn't that right? Was that right, Beverly Kane? Did you hear that? No, never heard it either, no.
Yeah, my husband. Yeah, we often had them in by then, but it wouldn't be much before that. Lately now, it's into June because the springs are a lot colder. But last year I shot mine, it must have been close to the first week of June.
Yeah, and in Ireland we have a tradition of digging our potatoes on the date of St. Peter and Paul's Day. Did you have the date of digging them on Lady Day, 15th of August?
Yeah, 15th of August, yeah. You try 15th of August. But if you know, most of the time, now, the first week of October, we're digging now.
Yeah, lovely. So come here. I'm getting sidetracked talking about spuds and stuff. I'm thinking about the cuckoo. And I'm going to ask one man to open up the whole session for us. And he's got a poem or a verse about the cuckoo. And it's a man called Paddy Berry. Can you hear us, Paddy?
Yeah, I can hear loud and clear.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Would you tell us about your what you're going to sing or what you're going to recite for us?
Well, it's a little song that, that I wrote myself. It was you who prompted it there a couple of years ago in the Songbird project that you did for the university when we travelled all around Ireland with concerts talking about birds. And this cuckoo, you see, is a very curious bird. As they say in Kilmore, cuckoo is cruel curious. So she gets up to, or is it a he, a she, or an it? In some of the versions that I have seen, it's referred to as he, she, and it. So it's a multi-gendered cuckoo. But I'm fighting back at the cuckoo with this few verses I have here. And it's a complete nonsense song. Complete nonsense. So I suppose the cuckoo it's not a straight bird either. So there's a bit of nonsense attached to her. So anyway. How sweet the pleasures of the spring when we hear the cuckoo sing. Cuckoo, 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 hear the cuckoo sing. The piper that played before Moses went wrong when he first heard the cuckoo song. Cuckoo, 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 hear the cuckoo sing. If I was a blackbird, I'd whistle and sing, but I'd hide by well when the cuckoo moves in. Cuckoo, 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 cuckoo. 1869 was the date of the year. The Waterloo cuckoos got sick drinking beer. And as I went out walking one morning in May, I heard someone say that the cuckoo was gay. Cuckoo, 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 hear the cuckoo sing. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She'd a whole heap of children and kept a cuckoo. The night before poor old Larry was stretched, he ate a whole cuckoo, got sick and then retched. Cuckoo, 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 hear the cuckoo sing. In a tree on a willow, a little tomtit sang willow, tit willow, tit willow. And he said to his dicky bird, why do you sit singing willow, tit willow, tit willow? Is it weakness of intellect, birdie, I mused? Or because the bird song event have you confused? But he said 'tis his parents which he didn't choose. For his father and mother were cuckoos. Cuckoo, 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 cuckoo. The cuckoo was a shifty bird with guilt in her eyes. He brings us good tidings by telling us more lies. If only he heard what I'm singing for you, he never again would want to be a cuckoo. Oh doctor, oh dear Dr. John, your bird liver oil is so pure and so strong. I'm afraid of me life, I'll be washed down the loo if I don't get something to cure my cuckoo, 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 cuckoo.
You said it was nonsense, and you never said a truer word. Pure nonsense. Pure, brilliant nonsense.
That's the shot. Thanks a million, Paddy Berry. Sticking in Wexford, we'll go around the room in Wexford. I'm looking at Deirdre Wadden here. Where's she gone at all? Where's she gone? Deirdre.
There's Deirdre.
Hey.
Hiya.
How are you doing?
I'm doing grand. How's yourselves?
Oh, good.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Good. Where are you at all? Tell people.
I am sitting in the front kind of hallway. This is an old cottage with an extension. So the living room is like in the extension bit, but this would have been the old heart of the house. And there's a stove here. And this is my little spot under the stairs where I like to sit, to do stuff,
Lovely.
to write, to think, to sing, to whatever. And so that's where I am, down in Kilran, stone's throw from Ballytrent Beach. Thankfully, with our 2 kilometre curfew for our walks, we're 1.9 kilometres from Ballytrent Beach, and just down the road from Rossiter Harbour, and in better times, the back road round to Ladies Island. So that's where I am.
Close to Paddy Berry. We're in the same barony.
I am, but I'm a townie. I confess, I grew up into the town, so I'm a proper hon.
Do you have something for us?
I have what I would call more of a rambling than a poem, which was kind of scribbled sitting out in the back garden today. I think everyone's probably noticed the birds are just unbelievable at the moment. Whether they have more sort of security in being really loud and really vibrant, or whether it's that we're hearing them more because we're quieter. I don't know which way around, but it's incredible the amount of bird life and just the abundance. So we have a collection of birds. There's one little resident blackbird. So I call this Blackbird just for want of a better title, to be honest. Our resident yellow-beaked, black-feathered minstrel takes up position in topmost branch, calling out the beginning and end of each day. Such full-throated joy, singing out hope, hope in this strange time of plague. And I sit beneath, watching and listening. In sunlit day or gathering dusk, robins and chaffinch, goldcrest and sparrow, pheasant close by, mingling calls rising up to the clear blue sky, the air filled with song. And as the day fades, in a cloud of dark wings, the rooks gather in, calling time on their smaller cousin's symphony, and night settles in. Under a glittering canopy of stars, or the great shining orb of the moon, and sleep takes the humans like me to the land of dreams. In this time of plague, at the break of day, the blackbird sings out, change is coming.
That's lovely, Deirdre.
Thank you.
Thanks a million for that. Brilliant. It's great, wasn't it? You wrote that today?
This after, well, I went out to sit down and write it, and then a friend and comrade rang me who needed a lengthy phone call. That took an hour out of my writing time, and then it was kind of just sure we'll see what comes out here. Like, yeah, this
Brilliant.
afternoon.
Lovely.
Yeah.
It's lovely. Thank you,
Brilliant.
Deirdre.
Thank you.
Can we go? I'm thinking of Catherine Ann Cullen now. I can't see her. I'm going to go from Wexford. I'm going to go up to County Loud. Where's she gone at all? Oh, Catherine's come back. She's not here. Oh, she's there. She is there.
Yeah.
How are you
How are
doing?
you? How are you?
We're good. And how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, not too bad at all.
Yeah.
Can you tell people where you are?
Well, I'm actually in Kimmage in Dublin, in my little house, and I have the dog behind me, but she probably won't disturb me. She looks like she's gone to sleep with all the singing and poetry. So yeah, it's lovely to hear everything. Lovely to see Deirdre and hear her poem and hear Paddy the song. Lovely, great.
Good. Do you have something for us?
I do. So I have a few poems. Actually, I don't know whether to start with a long one or a short one. But one of them is about, I wrote it about Frank Hart, who you probably all know, was a wonderful singer and collector of songs from Dublin here. And so maybe I'll start with that one. It mentions birds as in the kind of songs that he used to sing, with the birds sometimes featuring, as they do in many a Wexford song. I'm just thinking of it was early, all in the spring, the small birds whistle and sweetly sing. So anyway, this is called In Memory of Frank Hart. And I'll read this, and maybe I'll read a sonnet afterwards, just a short poem as well that I just wrote in the last couple of days. In Memory of Frank Hart. Oh, where is the voice of Frank Hart? When he sang, there were two crowds, one that gathered to listen, and one he conjured out of the air. He peopled the street with Zosimus and Moses, summoned Billy in the bowl, launched a flotilla of ships up the Liffey, led by the Calabar. Dublin made him, and he in turn built his city out of old songs, resurrected heroes, restored lost bridges so the ghosts could cross back to us. As a child, he heard old soldiers from the Dublin Fusiliers who'd gone from Chapel Lizard out to Flanders. And they talked of killing snipers in a place that they called Wipers. And Frank sang of all the lives that battle squanders, with his whack fall the died-all right tam-tam to-na. His voice was anguish echoing in an empty cell. His voice was can't read me own writing. His voice was a keening for dead trades and dreams. His voice was a passion kept in check, or a rebel blast across shivering rooftops. His forest was willow and holly and laurel, trees where men were hanged, where birds told fates, where lovers were blessed or betrayed. Oh, where is Frank Hart now? He has sat for an a hawthorn bough. He's unlocking Kilmainham, he's opening Mountjoy. He is sending home safely a rosy-cheeked boy. He is following someone he called Henry Joy, sing Quackfall, the died-all right tam-tam to-na. He sang of lost worlds with lost words, tabinets and twangmen, waxies and swaddies. There was a love that laughed in his telling of a scrimmage in Kimmage, a rumbling and crumbling, of owled ones and bowled ones and blackguards and all. He remembered the lot of the labouring man, the wasted navvies, the paddies, hoken spuds, those who held hods, turned sods, were crushed under wheels of industry or state. He called up James, he called up Jim. When history lived, it lived through him, with failures, achievers, with lovers and leavers, to whir of the loom of the liberty's weavers. Oh, what will he leave us? The sun and the moon and the air when it carries an old Dublin tune. Sing Whackfall, the died-all die all the day long. Sing Frank Hart the Weaver has spun his last song. So that's Frank. So this is just a little sonnet that I wrote in the last couple of days. It's kind of not really completely finished, but you know, it's getting there. so I was kind of half thinking of my mom, who just lives up the road here. She's cocooning, so she can't go out, but she does have a nice little garden, so she spends some of her time in there. So I was thinking of the two of us. So it's called Chrysalis. The robin sings a fence around the garden. Note upon note, he builds his party wall. Imperious, impervious to doubt, he corners the market and sets out a stall that brooks no browsers. Deep in the fire-torn hedge, he monitors the boundaries unseen. There's no go to his pulsing traffic signal. His stop sign never changes, flashes green, until a mate is drawn by his performance. He sings her in. The rest, at a safe distance, storm his electric fence with their own tones, test its vibrations with a loud resistance. Cocooned in the garden, whistling with the birds, I wind myself a chrysalis of words. Sinead.
They're two of your own, aren't they?
They're two of mine, yeah.
Yeah. And the Frank Hart one, is that published? Is that yet published?
Yeah, that's in my poetry collection, so it's in the other now. It's called from Daedalus, yeah.
So, show up a cover of it there. Do you have a copy of the cover?
I do. Let's see now, can I? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a lovely painting on the cover by a Palestinian artist, Raoul Al-Ajuri. So just if you're ever looking at it.
Lovely. Thanks a million, Catherine.
Thanks, Catherine.
You're welcome. It's lovely.
No.
I'm thinking of now. Catherine. Sorry about this, folks. I see Rosie here. I'm thinking of another person that we know, and I'm going to put someone on the spot, and we'll come back around the country in a while. Rosie over in Clare. How are you?
Hi, lads.
Hi, Rosie.
How are you?
I'm not too bad. I have a very bad reception this evening.
Oh.
Good. Come here to me. Would you have a song for us at all? Or, I was thinking of your Magpie song.
I could sing the Magpie song, yeah. Because I was thinking of cuckoos there. So many cuckoo songs as well.
Oh, you want to sing the cuckoos? Do you want to sing the cuckoo song? Your cuckoo song, I know the one you're on about.
Well, I'd have a few cuckoos. I have a few cuckoo songs. I don't know. Do you want to hear a Baldy song this early in the day?
Sure. I'm looking around the room here now.
It might be just too early. It might be just too early first.
No, there's no. I can't see any chaps in the audience. Anyone? If you don't want to hear it, stop on mute for a second. Go on over that. Do you want to?
Go on, sure.
Well,
I'll sing the cuckoo's nest.
Yeah.
A relative of the magpie's nest. There is a thorn bush in our kale yard. There is a thorn bush in our kale yard. At the back of the bush there stands a lad and lass, and they're busy hurrying at the cuckoo's nest. Hi the cook and ho the cook and hi the cuckoo's nest. Hi the cook and ho the cook and hi the cuckoo's nest. I give anybody a shilling and a bottle of the best if they'll rumple up the feathers of the cuckoo's nest. I met him in the morning, I took him there at night. I had to show him where to go, I had to keep him right. He never would have found it, he never would have guessed if I hadn't shown him where to find the cuckoo's nest. I showed him where to find it, I showed him where to go, through the brambles and the prickles where the wee cuckoos go. Oh, the minute that he found it, he wouldn't let me rest till he rumpled up the feathers of the cuckoo's nest. It is boiled, it is sprinkled, it is compassed all around. It's tucked into a corner and it isn't easy found. She said, young man, you're plundering. He said it wasn't true, but he left me with the makings of a young cuckoo. Hi the cook and ho the cook and hi the cuckoo's nest. Hi the cook and ho the cook and hi the cuckoo's nest. I'd give anybody a shilling and a bottle of the best if they rumple up the feathers of the cuckoo's nest. So that's the cuckoo's nest, and I heard the cuckoo out this morning.
Really?
You serious?
The cuckoo is alive and well and clear.
Brilliant. Summer is coming. Yeah,
Brilliant.
it's arrived.
That is
Summer is coming.
Yeah.
That's great. It's a great little song as well, Rosie. Yeah. We won't go into the detail. If you haven't guessed what a cuckoo's nest is there, lads,
It's a good song. Oh, yeah.
it's a great song. My mother had a saying at home. They said if you didn't hear the cuckoo by the end of May, you wouldn't live for the following year. We did. That's the kind of, I'm sure there's many years didn't hear it. I'm thinking of going, Rosie's originally County Meath, and she's down in Clare, but I'm thinking of a Cavan man that's down in Wexford now. I'm going to go and try to get him. Kevin McDermott, is he there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Next page. No, hang on there, folks. Kevin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Wow.
Can you hear me? Right, great.
Yeah.
Right.
We're putting you on the spot now after that, aren't we?
Well, I'll tell you what, I feel like singing a verse of Hail Holy Queen after that.
We won't let you do that, though.
Right. Anyway, I'm going to relate the story of an old man who's lamenting the loss of his home. And it's called The Wee House. It's not much to look at, this poor old house of mine. 3 rooms, a wee back kitchen, and a draught in winter time. The place could do with painting, and the roof is letting through. There's no one here to mend it, and I'm old and feeble now. Last spring, I put a bit of fancy paper on the walls. I tried to keep it tidy, but sure no one ever calls. But it's for the sake of days gone by. I tried to keep it neat. You know, this was once the warmest little house along this street. I mind as well as yesterday, the first day that we came, myself and Martha Miller. Now, that no longer was her name because we were wed that morning. We went to Dublin for the day and came back to this wee palace to start upon life's way. We polished and we painted. We made this wee house shine. Though small and poor and humble, it was ours, hers and mine. And when the children came along, first Billy, then wee Grace, there wasn't in all of Ireland a warmer, sweeter place. My heart, it fills with sadness, and my eyes be dim with tears when I think of all the gladness of those lovely, happy years. But life is such a puzzle. It gives, then takes away. And yesterday's gladness can be the sadness of today. Then came life's great trial. I mind that awful day as we knelt down at her bedside as dear Martha passed away. I mind the awful sobbing as her spirit went above. You know, the greatest pain your heart can know is to lose the one you love. And pain came throbbing back again when Billy went to fight in the jungles of Vietnam for what he thought was right. When the telegram came, I knew what it would say. Your son has died in battle in the jungles far away. I saw a wee girl married, a sweet and lovely bride. That night this house was lonesome. I mind how much I cried. For now the 3 I loved the most and all the world had gone, and I was left heartbroken here, lost, loveless and alone. They wanted me to go with them, and I knew that they'd be kind, but I couldn't leave this little house of memories behind. For every joy I ever knew, every happy day has hollowed this wee home for me, and here I have to stay. This little house, this palace, this temple of my heart, of house of memories, how can I depart? But I have to leave my little home and wander where I may. Tomorrow they're coming to sweep this house away. A big machine called Progress is coming down that street, and all these sad wee houses will fall crumbling at its feet. They're going to build the motorway, and what will Progress care for the hopes, the dreams, the broken hearts amid the rubble there? Aye, tomorrow they are coming. It's hard to understand. So what's a few sad memories to the onward march of man? I'll get no sleep at all tonight. Tomorrow's coming fast. So I just sit here till morning with my memories to the last. Sinead.
Thanks a million, Kevin.
Lovely, Kevin.
Where did you get that, Kevin?
Up my neck of the woods, Calvin. The words that are in it sometimes depict that it came from Northern Ireland, obviously, probably the Bard of Armagh crowd, you know. But that's where I got it anyway. A lovely recitation. I like it.
Yeah, good man, lovely. Thanks a million, Kevin, right? Listen, I'm going to hop, when we go from Cavan across to Armagh, I'm going to hop across to Newfoundland. Dan Murphy, where's Dan Murphy gone at all? I'm going to see, try to find you, Dan.
There, go back.
I'll go back.
He was there a second ago. Just there.
How are you, Dan?
I'm perfect. This is wonderful, Michael.
Great, good man.
Perfectly wonderful.
Thanks. Tell people where you are at all, will you?
Well, I'm in Cornerbrook on the west coast of Newfoundland, but we have a place in Tilting on the east coast. Of course, they claim Tilting is the most Irish community in North America, full of McGraths and Foleys and the whole crowd of them. And my Murphys actually are from Prince Edward Island.
All right.
And of course, my ancestors came over from Wexford. They were farmers.
Yeah.
Wexford,
and we have lots of snow here.
Yeah.
So I envy the Green Ireland. I have two small poems to read you, if you don't mind. The first one is titled I Never Cared for Wild Geese. Mary Oliver, the great American poet, passed away last year. And one of her most famous poems was titled Wild Geese. And I wrote this the day she passed away. And it's in my forthcoming book, by the way, which is actually coming out in 2022. So I hope I'm alive for the launch. So this is called I Never Cared for Wild Geese. Mary, I never cared much for your wild geese. The loneliness they carry in their V's, cackling south, wedging the wind like aluminum parts of airplanes. I remember my father pointing up so I could hear their call, squinting into autumn's distance to see thin threads of birds whipping the wind like tips of fishing rods, skeins of geese, the last remnants of tattered prayer flags. I would follow them until they dissolved into liquid gray. Even in the spring, your wild geese didn't bring happiness, the announcing you wrote about. Perhaps it is the dying of seasons that geese fly through, the beauty of summer left in tatters of leaves, winter's purity bruised like an apple that leaves me sadder than you meant me to be in your poetry. And the second one I'm going to read, and for those from Newfoundland, this is called Bird, but there's a story with this. In 1942, two American warships went aground near the community of St. Lawrence. And St. Lawrence is on the south coast. And who's from the south coast? Kenneth, is it? Or somebody here is from the south? But anyway, the people of St. Lawrence went down and rescued the crew. And they brought the crew up to their homes. And each family took a particular sailor. And of course, these sailors were covered with dark oil. And any one lady brought up this sailor to her house, and she scrubbed and scrubbed and scrubbed. And she couldn't get him white. And of course, he was black. It was the first black person they ever saw in St. Lawrence. And everybody in the community fought over him. They wanted him to stay at their house. His name was Lanier Phillips. He passed away a couple of years ago. And this is called Bird. But just to finish the story off, he couldn't believe how well he was treated by the people of Newfoundland. It was the first time in his whole life that white people had treated him as an equal. And the sad story was that when they sent the buses from Argentia, which was the American naval base in Newfoundland, they sent one bus to pick him up because he was black. But he came back for years to St. Lawrence, to visit St. Lawrence. And there was a beautiful play written about him a couple of years ago by Mr. Chafe, a well-known Canadian Newfoundland playwright. So it's called Bird. It's almost a metaphor. Every century or two, a swallow washes ashore in the land wash. Then St. Lawrence carries it up on the broad of its shoulders over the grassy meadows and nurses it. Bent wings are tied up, tar brushed away, flight feathers rearranged and smoothed back. Then a bird is carried back to the flat rock and borne up against the wind, let loose, flying south again like a dove. So this man spent his whole life trying to promote, dispel prejudice in America. So thank you very much, Michael.
Thanks.
Lovely to be able to jump over the corner brook and to hear that. It was gorgeous. I was thinking of a few people in the room there. I was thinking of Rosie again, back to Rosie. Rosie wrote a song 2 years ago about where's Rosie gone? I'm just going to unmute this because it's a lovely story. There you go. Rosie, can you tell us the story about?
Well, I wrote about a fella called Jack Monday. And the story goes that in 1921, just at the end of the Civil War, there was a ship came into Limerick from West Africa, and on their way out of Limerick, the deal was with maritime law. I don't know if it's still the same, but at the time you had to fly the flag of the country that you were leaving on your ship when you were on the way out. And Jack Monday and this crew of African sailors put up the Irish flag on their way out. Now they should have by law put up the Union Jack. So the Black and Tans boarded the ship, and the skirmish broke out, and Jack seemingly stabbed one of the Black and Tans, and they ended up inside in jail in Limerick. And a couple of weeks later, the Free State troops got into the jail, and they found him below in the cell, and he was looked after. He was well looked after because of what he'd done for the Irish cause, and he ended up joining the Irish Army, and moved to Gormanstown and became a fitter in the Irish Army. And I followed it up with the military archives, and they have a record of Jack Monday being in the army at that time. So yeah, it's a good story. But he would have been a rare thing, all right, in Limerick in those days.
Yeah, one of the first Black Irish Republicans. Yeah, hang on. Can you hear me, Rosie? Yeah. Oh.
No, sorry, you're gone a bit there, Mick.
Yeah, I said it would have been probably one of the first Black Irish Republicans in our history.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
And the first, and maybe the first Black man in the Irish Army.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't help but think of Deirdre Barker here, because in Wexford, and Deirdre Wadding is there as well. Is Deirdre here? Deirdre Barker.
No, that's who
we'll come back to her. She's going to come here in a while, because we unveiled a plaque. Well, we didn't. Deirdre and a group of people in Wexford unveiled a plaque for Frederick Douglass in Wexford last November or December. And it's the second, I think it was the second Frederick Douglass weekend. He spent some time in Wexford. So listen, when Deirdre comes on, we get her. She's a poet.
Sure, come on, and let's get her on.
Okay, she's having problems getting on. Listen, come here. While I'm here, actually, anyone else from Newfoundland? We have some guests here that are going to do pieces, but I'm looking at Beverly Kane or anyone else from Newfoundland who'd like to put up their hand, that would like to do something when we're out on when we're over that side of the sea. Bev, how are you doing?
Best kind, how are you?
Good. Can you tell people where you are at all? Exactly.
I'm on the southern shore of Newfoundland. It's called, the area that I live in is called the Irish Loop. So there's quite a bit of an Irish connection here. I'm in Renews, actually. And the poem I was going to read for you was one that Loyola Hearn wrote. Now, I messaged Loyola about this. I thought he might get on this evening. He was the Canadian ambassador to Ireland for a number of years. So we have a lovely pile of geese in our harbour. And this is a poem that Loyola wrote April 7 about this lovely bunch of geese. There's a spot in Renews Harbour where the geese come every year. With hunting now forbidden, well, they can rest without a fear. They feed up on the mud banks and they swim around the pool. The avid local hunters can only sit and drool. But then the virus came along and grub was hard to find. The Costco shelves were getting bare, the others close behind. And just a note, Costco is one of those large box stores and you get everything in bulk there. You can get a bale of toilet tissue if you want it. So our fathers had no Costco, for they lived off the land. The food up on the table was whatever was on hand. They ate a lot of mutton and they even used the fleece. They also had some rabbits and turrs and ducks and geese. Now others thought about this and soon expressed their views. We saw a major increase in the traffic in Renews. But the geese are gone this morning. They left for somewhere hot. And if they stayed around much longer, I'm sure they'd be headed for the pot. So those geese moved off, but I'm happy to tell you the geese are back again. And I think they're getting ready to lay some eggs. So the population is doing good.
See the goose in the pot, they're still back. Yeah. Listen, thanks, Bev.
Thanks, Bev.
Have you got a minute for the wren?
Yeah. Yes, go on.
If you all have the tradition of the wren over there, but we keep it alive in our community of Renews, and it's alive in Collier's too. So I just recite that for you now. The wren, the king of all birds. St. Stephen's Day, he got cut in the furs. Although he was little, his honor was great. Jump up, young lady, and give us a treat. Up at the kettle and down with the pan, a penny a tuppence to bury the wren. A pocket full of money and a cellar full of beer. Wish you Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. There you go. A little out of season, but good.
Just for those who, thanks a million, Bev. For those who don't know, we couldn't believe it. Aside from the Christmas mummers or the Christmas fools or the Christmas oonjocks that would go on in Newfoundland and Ireland, the wren tradition was strong. And again, in Riverhead, we came across it in Riverhead, and we actually saw videos of children out this year recorded. John Ryan down in Riverhead. Remember doing it. So it's unbelievable that tradition went over. I have a request here for a man called David Patton. Patton, I'm going to flick here. He's over in Newfoundland now. Yeah. How are you getting on, Dave? Are you well, lad?
I'm very good, thank you. This is great.
Yeah. Good. Where are you at all?
I'm in St. John's right now, but I'm originally from Labrador, so but I've been living here for about 15 years or so.
Right.
And I have a story which I actually first told on your side of the pond at the Bard of Armagh. I think Kevin McDermott mentioned that earlier. I was invited over to the Bard of Armagh, I guess about 10 years ago. And I told this story, and they made me an official Bard of Armagh, which is a huge honor. And now I understand they don't do it anymore. So I'll hang on to that forever. But they were very charitable. I don't think they understood my accent all that well. But I'll try it again here. Now, I would like to introduce you to my sidekick here. If you look closely, you'll see a seabird. Now, you know him as a murr. Over here, we have to be a little bit different. We call him a turr, T-U-R-R. This is the Christmas turr. And it's a story I wrote in 2007. It's a recitation. I've written about 35 of them now, and this is the first one ever. And I'll give you about a minute of background and about 3 minutes of story. In 2007, a news item came on CBC radio. A seabird from Newfoundland had stowed away in a commercial airliner, ended up out in Fort McMurray, thousands of miles away, and flew out of the cargo compartment and attracted a great deal of attention from the 14,000 Newfoundlanders living there who saw one of their favorite meals flying around overhead. So I thought a little bit about that, about what the reaction might be, and I came up with this thing, and I'll try it out on you now. Just called the Christmas Tour. It was the night before Christmas, and all through the plain, all the faces were gloomy and showing the strain of heading back west on a Christmas away from the family in town or the crowd round the bay. But down in the hold there was one happy face on a fellow so glad to be leaving this place, a fat little tur who'd been shot at, you see, so many times he decided to flee. But not being known as the world's greatest flyer, he thought he'd hitchhike on a one that went higher. Now this is my tur impersonation. Now where she lands to, I don't really care. It's got to be better than hanging around here and trying to avoid a load of lead shot just to finish me days in a cast iron pot. All the way to Toronto, he laughed his head off. But when they opened the door there, he wouldn't get off. Well, it don't look like much, and all hands is vexed. I think I'll bite on this one and see where she'll pitch next. 4 hours later, they opened the door. He thought it was safe, so he went to explore. An aerial survey had him feeling so grand, just a few oil rigs and lots of nice sand. He thought he had stumbled on heaven, yes, sir, till a voice from below bawled, Lord Jesus, a tur! Well, it didn't take long before word got around and the heavy artillery started to pound. Our poor little tur felt a strong deja vu. My cripes, that's the crowd out from Harbour Licoo. Of all of the flights he could jump on, you see, he jumped on the one out to Fort McMurray. So he dodged and he wove as the ground fire grew, and he couldn't quite figure out just what to do. But just then it struck him. No, not the lead shot, but a scheme to avoid the cast iron pot. Their plans for roast tur, I think I can spoil 'em, if the SPCA here will grant me asylum. Outside of the shelter, there gathered a crowd of hungry Newfoundlanders. I know they're not loud. They had all the gear for their supper plans, tubs of salt beef, fresh buds and jams. One porty grey fellow, known only as Bert, said, send out the tub, and no one will get hugged. Well, the high-level talks that started next morning would soon overshadow talks on global warming. Harper and Williams arrived on the scene. Tony, Blair, and the Clintons came as a team. The international press recorded the drama of the first real test for Barack Obama. And after months of these talks came a deal of a sort, and the tur flew off home with an Air Force escort. And since all hands was in town with not much to do, they turned their attention to some other issues. Middle East peace, a nuclear arms pact, and a purity factory to be built in Fort Mac. So now our fine little tur spends his time on the funks, or he goes out to feed by the rocks and the sunkers. He tells all his buddies of his journey so queer. I'm telling you, boys, we're better off here. The humans are certainly an awful stun lot. I'm not even a tur. I'm a black guillemot. So there you go.
Good man yourself.
Come on, David.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a million.
Okay.
Very good. I'm trying to figure out, I'm looking around the room here, we have people, I'm trying to figure out, Fintan Murphy. Can I put you on the spot, Fintan Murphy? I'm going to mute David.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Can-
can.
yeah.
Woohoo.
Oh, great. Yeah, I couldn't hear you at the beginning, but I did manage to get it working then.
Great.
Okay, well,
tell people where you are, will you?
Oh, sorry, I'm very close to the junction between the baronies of Forth and Bargy. I'm just down from the border between the two, and I'm on the barony Forth side in the ancient historic capital of those two baronies called Mayglass in southeast County Wexford. That's where I am. And will I just carry on?
Love to hear.
you mentioned that it was about birds and that, and on the day that's in it, it's another anniversary and birthday, but of an English playwright. Shakespeare was born and died on the 23rd of April, and I was thinking about how he features birds of ill omen a few times, like Lennox in Macbeth and the king. They're going to stay with Macbeth, and on the night before he says, lamentings were heard in the air, strange screams of death, and prophesying with accents terrible of dire combustion and confused events new hatched to the woeful time. The obscure bird who was making the noise down the chimney clamoured the livelong night. Some say the earth was feverous and did shake. And in Julius Caesar, on the morning of the Ides of March, which is not that long gone, Casca said, men of fire did walk up and down the streets, and yesterday the bird of night did sit, even at noonday upon the marketplace, hooting and shrieking. But on a more positive note, by the way, just to say, why would I bring Shakespeare in and I from Forth and Bargy? Well, any playwright that could quote Seamus Kerwin from Maid Lass 400 years before he was born. Yeah, Seamus, if you said somebody had a baby, you know, his question would be, well, tell us, was it a boy or a child? And Shakespeare, when in The Winter's Tale, two shepherds find a baby washed up on the street, on the beach, in a basket, you know, and the old shepherd says to the young lad, tell us, is it a boy or a child? So there you are, Seamus Kerwin and Shakespeare. Finally, about Shakespeare, in Romeo and Juliet, when it's time for Romeo to leave, because 'tis almost morning, Juliet says, I would have thee gone, and yet no further than a wanton's bird, who lets it hop a little from her hand, like a poor prisoner in his twisted gyves, and with a silk thread plucks it back again, so loving jealous of his liberty. And Romeo said, I would I were thy bird. Sweet, says Julius, so would I, yet I should kill thee with much cherishing. Good night, parting is such sweet sorrow, that I should say good night till it be tomorrow. Now, I'll finish with a poem of my own. And it's actually quite similar to what Juliet was saying there. But I wasn't thinking of the play at all when I wrote this. I wrote this a couple of years ago. Sometimes birds come down our chimney here. And this is what can happen, you know. I've called the poem Flying Through Glass. I have seen little birds trapped inside a room, frantically beating wings against the window pane. Catch them to set them free, they almost break their wings in the struggle. And yet you know that if you hold them gently enough, they'll fly free, but stay around the house to brighten your days with song. Now, before I go, it's also nearly somebody else's anniversary today. And I saw a message there from Deirdre about tomorrow night. It's tomorrow will be Dennis Collins's anniversary, and there'll be a poetry reading to celebrate that. And yes, I got the message, Deirdre. It's terrible we have to go through Dan Murphy in Newfoundland. How are you, Dan? Great to see and hear you again. And the wilds of Ballindagan to get a message to Deirdre, who's at the other end of the Barney Fort. Thanks.
Thanks, Fintan.
Okay.
Thanks a million. That was a lovely run of stuff you had put together.
Yeah, it was lovely. Just to tell people, a couple of years ago, myself and Fintan and a few people have worked together on projects, and there was one project we did, and Deirdre has sparked it again. There was a neighbour up in mine up in Ballyedmond said that there'll never be peace in Ireland until the magpie left the country. And back in about 1995 or 6, I was reading an account of when the first magpies that arrived in, they arrived in the barony of Fort, wasn't it? Or was it down near Our Lady's Island or Baldwinstown? So myself and Fintan and someone who was Phyllis Lawler, we worked on a project called the Magpie. And what's lovely, Fintan, what some people may have heard me saying this last week, the magpie folklore that we have in Ireland now came directly in, was it under a dozen that they came in? Wasn't that the case?
Yes, that's what one of the sayings about it is. Yeah, under a dozen they came.
Yeah. There were no magpies in Ireland, and even John Derrick had an account where no magpies to pluck, detach. I remember there was accounts of the lack of them, but that superstition travelled over to Newfoundland, and it struck us last year. And we've had this conversation with friends from Newfoundland already, but they didn't have magpies, but they had the black crow. So they basically transplanted the same superstition onto the black crow. So 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, and it carries on in a new form.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Come here. When we're there, I'm thinking of when you mention the word birds and you're thinking of Shakespeare. For some reason I'm thinking of Fergus Russell. I don't know how he's thinking of Fergus Russell. Hang on, I'm going to mute you.
I know well why you're thinking of Fergus Russell.
Because he's from Dublin, and when you hear the word bird, where's he gone at all? There you are, waving. How are you now?
I'm good. Great to see everybody.
Good man.
Yeah. I'm in over in Englishman. Been here for 5 weeks. Lovely place to be. And the cuckoo is here.
Yeah.
We heard the cuckoo last couple of days ago, and we heard it again today. So we have the cuckoo here. Okay. It always comes here. It lays its eggs in the nest of the meadow pipit. And there's a lot of pish oaks and a lot of folklore about the cuckoos. And like Mick was saying earlier on, that a farmer who plants the potatoes after Paddy's Day here. The tradition here is that you plant your spuds before St. Patrick's Day, 17th of March. And if you leave it till afterwards, you're known as a cuckoo farmer. And I was talking to a guy from he's from Carrigan-Shore, and he was originally a farmer. He lives here though. His children came to school here, and he came with them, and he's living here. And they call it cuckoo farming as well. Anyway, you want me to sing a song, right? I wrote this song during the time that Aileen and Mick were doing the bird song project, which was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, wasn't it, Mick? And I wasn't involved in the project, but I was involved in the Golan Singers Club, and we wanted to commemorate what was being done by having a night of bird song. And I wrote this because it was a sort of unofficial competition between all of the song clubs, the singing clubs, and we'll see who would mention the most songs in the night. So I wrote this for that, right? Some of it will be hard to understand because there's a few colloquial expressions. A twitcher in Ireland is a bird spotter, and a git is a young pigeon. So here we go. Anyway, the curlew likes to pipe, and the grouse she likes to drum, and the blackbird likes to whistle and sing, and the hummingbird to hum. The cockerel likes to crow. Now the crow he likes, and Janie, the curlew. No, I'll try to start it again. No, I forgot the beginning. The curlew likes to pipe, and the grouse he likes to drum, and the blackbird likes to whistle and sing, and the hummingbird to hum. The cockerel likes to crow, the crow he loves to caw. Has anyone seen me spare the van, said the owl Jack Daw. 'Twas a sunny Sunday morning, to the bird market I did go. I met the pretty boarder there, and she told me trade is slow. I said I'm a pigeon fancier, I'm looking for some kits. She said I've no squabs and no pigeons, but I've a lovely pair of curlies like the pipe, and the grouse she likes the drum, and the blackbird likes to whistle and sing, and the hummingbird the hum. The cockerel likes the crow he loves the caw. Has anyone seen me spare van, said the owl Jack Daw. 'Twas the week before the Christmas, I had some turkeys for to sell. I took them to the poultry market where I met a neat young girl. I asked if she fancied the little bronze hen. Her reply gave me quite a shock. I'm no interested in your little bronze hen. I'm me eye and your great big curl who likes the pipe, and the grouse she likes the drum, and the blackbird likes to whistle and sing, and the hummingbird to hum. The cockerel likes the crow he loves the caw. Has anyone seen me spare the van, said the owl Jack Daw. Oh, 'twas the local twitchers contest. I was paired with a lady of note. We spent the day spotting seabirds all around the environs of Hout. She said if I'd just one more bird, I'd be certain the grand prize to have in the bag. If you put me down for the cormorant, I'll pencil you in for a curl who likes the pipe, and the grouse he likes the drum, and the blackbird likes to whistle and sing, and the hummingbird to hum. The cockerel likes the crow he loves the caw. Has anyone seen me spare the van, said the owl Jack Daw. Has anyone seen me spare the van? Has anyone seen me spare the van? Has anyone seen me queer one, said the owl Jack Daw. Good night.
And Fergus Russell.
You're welcome.
Thanks a million. Thanks for doing that. I'm going to stay in Galway, and I'm going to see is Michael Coy around. Where's Michael? I can see a hands up there. Oh,
There he is.
Up. Who? How are you getting on? Yeah. Tell people where you are, will you?
Huh?
Tell people where you are.
I'm in East Galway, in Lochray and Cravel, just a bit off the old Galway Dublin Road one time. Sure, it's all motorway now, you know. And that's where I was born and bred and where I live. So that's me.
Good, that'll do. Have you got something for us?
Yeah, I've got two short pieces. One was called Herden. They're both kind of rooted in truth, I suppose, really. This was kind of one morning I was on a job out in Clifton and just sort of driving about, picked up these little details and jotted them down. Herden. There's a bridge a mile from Clifton on the Ballyconneely Road. A herden stands guard o'er the stream beneath. No one shall pass unchecked. The Skye Road winds towards Letterdene, taking the wild Atlantic way. It overlooks the sea road where Lisa walks to work. Lisa serves at Dave's bar. A banjo and guitar adorn the wall. Dave roosts on a bar stool like the herden. No one shall pass unchecked. So that's that. This was, I wrote this back in 2016. And I just put it out there. it was a thought I had one day about a woman who taught music when I was a child. And she went from school to school and from place to place. And she was known all over the county. She was a woman called Mrs. Lyons. And I didn't realize until I wrote it and just put it up on Facebook. And I put it, I sent it to a friend of mine who was a local community activist at the time and who knew everyone in the community. And all of these people started popping up, you know, that are now, you know, working musicians. This is how they make their livelihood. And they all spoke very affectionately about this woman. So it had an impact far beyond what I would have dreamt when I wrote it, you know. So this is it. Anybody who's taught music to primary schools, someone will probably recognize the kind of bedlam, and this is called Bedlam and Beauty. The partition is pulled aside, the double classroom full. The doors are closed. Sir is smoking in the porch. Miss is correcting somewhere quiet. A bulky figure treads the corridor, heavy footsteps drowned out by the noise. Her figure fills the doorway. A brief silence breaks out. Enter the lion tamer, Mrs. Lyons, weapon in hand. Into this zoo of squawks and squeaks, yelps and bangs, bravely she wades into battle, armed with a fiddle. Banjos are tuned, flutes assembled, whistles are chosen in the key of D, boxes are dragged from boxes, straps adjusted. B and C sharp D across the chest or on the knee. Like the sun rising to the dawn chorus of birdsong and traffic. Through the mist, a tune emerges. Louise has broken a string. Her father joined it with the pliers. Innit?
That's lovely, Mick.
That was lovely stuff altogether.
Yeah, that's good. I remember my father home fixing our hurls with broken bean things, and it reminds me of that. No one hurl would break.
Oh, we had plenty of that, yeah, and scrapping off pallets and things like that.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks a million, right?
I know, no bother.
Hang on there. I'm going to look around. I'm looking around. I can see Deirdre Barker is in the room here. Hang on there. Where's she gone? Aha, have you? Hey.
Hiya, Deirdre.
Oh, wait a minute. I've lost my screen.
Well, we can still see you. Where would that be now?
It's a little video button. Down the very bottom left, Deirdre. Is there a little video? It says stop video. Bottom left somewhere.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
I'm back.
Hey.
Great. We have you. You were trying for a while there, weren't you? Earlier on in the evening.
I was. Thank you for your help. And I'm sorry I was late, everybody arriving, but it's been lovely so far. Thank you, both of you, for organising this. It's superb. And it was lovely to hear Rosie talk about the song that you sang at the festival, the Frederick Douglass Festival.
Oh, you were in that. I wasn't sure when you came in.
I was there, and it was lovely to actually see her. And that was a great night and greatly enhanced by your family singing that song.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
We loved it. Yeah.
Good.
If anybody comes to Wexford, if we ever get out again, if you go to Wexford, the wall of the Arts Centre, there's a plaque which has been put up to commemorate Frederick Douglass having spoken at the Wexford Arts Centre for 2 nights in 1845. And that's how our festival came about. So we're keeping prayers that that festival might happen again in November. We hope so.
Should happen, yeah.
It should happen. Yeah, I've just got a couple of poems. I don't know whether people realize, but one of the commands that Jesus actually gave us was to look at the birds of the air, along with loving one another and loving our neighbour as ourselves and loving the Lord your God with all your heart and mind and soul. So look at the birds of the air, he said. When you died, I looked out to sea, saw a ribbon of gannets lacing low, glinting in the falling sun, heading for rock face homes. I understood. When I'm sad after the storm washes the leaves shiny green, a blackbird stands high up on an empty thrusting branch, proudly sings, hauling in his net of notes, my heavy heart to join him, I understand. When I'm frightened, I watch the barn owl, wide-winged in the field of mice. He's bold and focused, I understand. When I'm willing the season to change, swallows flit fork-tailed and swift, swooping low to catch flashing insects as they fly, sleeping on the wing. They drag summer from Africa in their blue trail, I understand. I tickle my trembling nerves with stories, myths and superstitions, distilled wisdom and observation of centuries and augury about birds I watch, and birds in foreign and fantastic lands, and worst of all, birds extinct, whose wing beats leave only invisible traces in air, breezing memory to pine. I learn how not to worry. I understand why he said, look at the birds of the air, and made it a command. And this is a poem I wrote some time ago, a long time ago, thankfully, when my son was having a psychotic episode, which meant that he was sectioned in a mental hospital. And it was a difficult time. It's called Dead Seagulls. When my dog gobbles a dead seagull, it doesn't touch the sides of her mouth. Now when I see you, my baby man, your chubby little boy face all hollow and gaunt, your happy blue eyes empty and haunted, sunk in your life-worn skin. As I watch your tears silently run down cheeks to your mouth hanging loose, both of us unable to speak. When the only words that emerge are violent, condemned, punished, inevitable, and the terror of them frightens water into your eyes in your locked ward, in the rambling grounds of a forgotten asylum. I'm glad that my dead seagull doesn't touch the sides of my mouth, and I don't taste the decaying flesh of your mental illness, but still stand beside you like my dog, full of a wellspring of love, aware only of your deep core, which plumbs my depths. You got well. Have you got time for another one? Have you got time for another one?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead,
do.
Deirdre.
Yeah, do.
Thanks.
Let's see. This is one that is about a deserted village which was near to where I used to live in East Yorkshire, and the village had been cleared of all the people. It's something to do with rents and evictions, and just the traces of the village still exist, but it's off the road. And so one of the things that's very noticeable when you go and walk around this village is the bird song, because it's so far away from all the traffic. So the village is called Warham Percy. I am the village song spirit, safe in the old coppice wood. I am the swallow who nests in the roof rafter, swooping in through the open sky. I am the bird who enchants this haunted village. I think I'm being telephoned. Sorry. I am the bird who enchants this haunted village, singing in the silence still. I charm the holy grave man. I sense the spring line along the dry valley ridge. I fly the secret boundaries only aerial views reveal. I feed on the ones who didn't desert, grass, insects, pond water. I smell the smoke wafts from house hearths on the hill. I hear the dusk-glowing cattle bruise the fragile falling light as they tramp the holloway. I taste bread wrought by hands from corn ground at the invisible watermill. I see the neglected tower halved, and hidden faces I once knew grimace over the airy roof, guarding the site of time-rotten tofts and crofts. I commune with the silent witness stones who retell 1,000 tales of 1,000 toiling men who heard their death knell in this vale, of 1,000 valley women who laughed and loved and prayed when they heard the right rhythmic chiming of the lost bell, of 1,000 pain-thrust babies who entered this green island while I was singing in the thrush-full silence still. It kind of reminds me of deserted villages that, you know, on the west of Ireland. I remember going to one in Achill some years ago, and I had the same kind of feeling. You know, you could just see the mounds in the ground where the potato beds had been, and just traces of stones, you know, overgrown. But there's a huge presence in these places.
Absolutely. There's a lovely spot there. We only came across, we knew about it, but we only put a name to the house up near us here in Slieve Gar on the hill here in Kilteely. Family were evicted. A man called Whelan, off the top of my head, he was evicted, and him and the family went up there. I think he had 10 children, and he tried to farm the land, and he couldn't farm the land. He spent years and just gave up. But the ridges are all there still. The ruins of the house are still there. It's probably the only surviving famine era ruins left.
And there's a shiver through you, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Aileen.
Thank you.
Deirdre, I'm going to think of another Wexford people here. Helen Gaynor, I'm going to try to get you. You were trying to get in there. Helen, where are you?
Helen's down here.
How are you? Hang on, where's she gone? Oh.
Wait now. No, we should hear her. She's just at her video or something.
Hello.
Now you may unmute her again.
Can you hear me?
Hiya, Helen.
Yeah, hi. I've been listening to it all. I got in eventually.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Perfect.
we can. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just have a few poems here, and they refer to, I suppose, I'm a painter as well as a writer, and in my painting in recent years, I have spent a bit of time kind of thinking and painting about the idea of trying to fly and not necessarily getting very far, and sometimes flying a little bit too close to the sun like Icarus. So I've had female Icarus figures in my paintings. But anyway, so really the couple of pieces that I picked out are to do with flight, or birds are mentioned in some of them, and also to do with painting, because that's my other. So the first one is a piece called Flight Paths, and through the through the viewfinder of the cabin window, I am struck by the straightness of lines over Amsterdam. The land is parcelled into strips, occasionally ruptured by deviation, when perhaps a farm lad dreaming broke free and swerved, his concentration disturbed. Leaving Venice is different, not a direct path in sight. Her lagoons' channels furrow like underwater rivers, Her island shapes and tributaries meander in organic windings, veins and capillaries in a map of skin. Weaving a sinuous course, the Grand Canal gleams flesh pink in the evening light, which reminds me of the trajectory of my journeys, that I am a winder, not a follower of straight lines. So that's the first one. Now let's see. The next piece is a little short, a fairly short piece, and it's one of many that were titled Notes for Painting. And this one refers to two very well-known artists, and it also refers to the cormorant. So, Notes for Painting 1. I see Georgia O'Keeffe in the sensuous curve of the breakwater. The promontory, a crooked marker for huddling cormorants who sit like gossiping crones. There is a sudden change of shape. Communally, they seem to stretch to full span, momentarily lean seaward, then with a look of yearning, I fancy, they make an unhurried return to something like hunched resignation. The painter in me sees Scully too, in great bands that stretch past the harbour mouth, sky light beyond the clouds, promising even, though the sea itself is a dark band that settles beneath, auguring rain. I have, is it okay? I have a few more, but they're all short, if that's okay. The next one is about going into the studio. And I suppose when I read this today, I was thinking that the second little stanza of it, where I'm actually going to paint, there is a feeling that the painting is a bit like being a seabird diving into water. Holding fast. From the first stirrings of intent, you glance upward to flight paths overhead, outwards to see sun-cast shadows on the light grey door. And dressed in old clothes, faded and stained, you go to the studio. Turn the radio on, leave lyric to find the song, decide on pigment, brushes, medium, then dive right in to the first painting of the day. Island of cobalt pools, waves to shore, or going through whether you like it or not. Afterwards, there is a ritual of cleaning, brushes swirled in white spirit, then soapy water until the ferrules shine. Hands too scrubbed. Despite your best efforts, a rim of blue remains, the traces of life and loss and hurt left in the cracks. And I will, I'll finish with this one, which is a piece called After Winter. A stack of broken delf, the remains of an orange bowl, a flowered plate, a lesser spotted black and white oven dish, 3 dinner plates with striped wings, all outside the back door. In the mildness of the spring day, midst the chatter of a charm of finches, I cannot help but wonder if a survey has been done on the frequency with which women in their middle years break crockery. That's it. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Do you break a lot of crockery?
I certainly do, and I certainly do. But there's always the possibility. I always hold on to it because there's always the possibility of, using it for something. So I kind of have all these bits gathered.
Granny used to have a great collection in the garden. There'd be a steak or something, and she'd always have an upturned jug or a teapot with the square handle missing off it or something. Upturned on the top of it. It was great.
Oh, the whole time, yeah, the whole time. It was lovely. Thanks a million, Helen.
Thank you.
Listen, I'm going to stick in County Wexford for one more. Dominique Codd, where's she gone at holiday? Dominique, you Helen. I'm going to flick my screens here. Bom, bom. Hi, have you? I'm going to unmute you. 1 second. She's not unmuting.
Now I'm unmuted now. Is that right?
Yay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yay.
Great.
Right now.
We have the wrong speaker here on the screen. I'm going to go to you, Dominic.
Wait till
Sorry,
I see.
folks, for this. Where are you gone? Can you wave for me, Dominic, so I can see you?
Her picture.
I waved to you there now. Look at.
It's moving.
Can you see me now, Michael?
Dominic Van McColder here.
Yeah.
Now, for some reason.
Yeah, Dominic Van McColder. Yeah.
We're not seeing your video.
We're not seeing your video.
Reason.
But we're okay if you can't see.
Okay.
It's the bottom left-hand corner. Is there a little video screen?
Now, because I can see myself. So, video. No, it says stop video, so I don't want video.
No, don't do that.
Yeah.
Grand.
Yeah, we saw you when we were just trying to.
Can you not see me? I have bright lipstick on me, Michael.
You think that?
I think that would work, wouldn't you? Yeah.
But no, there's
no,
another
it's not.
option
It's
there.
not working. Hang on.
I thought you might be able to.
No. Spotlight video.
Try that, but we'll have to remember to undo it.
My video has been spotlighted for everyone.
Yeah.
no.
So everyone, if you have a big block of black, that's supposed to be Dominic. That's
Okay. Now, is that better?
No, not working at all. Listen, tell you what, we'll have to imagine what you look like with that lipstick on you.
Okay.
And you're, yeah.
Now you're sending everybody.
Now, how do I stop this spotlight there?
At the moment, even if you were on gallery view, are you seeing the two big heads on us now? Are you, everyone? Yeah.
I can see you small and I can see me on big, so, you know, I don't know.
Now, listen, we're back to square one. Out. Listen, fire ahead without it. Go on out with that.
I will, if you don't mind, because I've never been on one of these before, Michael, and thank you both for inviting me on. And we said birds, I said, well, I have to go back to the very beginning. And I thought about Irish mythology and the importance of birds in Irish mythology. So I had a look through a book that I have in my cupboard. And of course, I was tidying out like everybody else in the country at the moment. I found Lady Gregory's Complete Irish Mythology. And one of the books in it, within the book, is Cuchulainn of Newfoundland, translated by Lady Gregory and prefaced by W. Yeats. So just going to read a little bit about the importance of birds in the birth, at the time of the birth of Cuchulainn and at the time of his death. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, perfect. What?
Hello. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Now I'm leaving out huge chunks, so bear with me. In the time ago, Cuchulainn, son of Nasa, was king of Ulster, held his court in the house of Aonmacca. Now it happened one day that Cuchulainn was making a feast at Aonmacca for the marriage of his daughter, Jactara, with son of Roig. And at the feast, Jactara was thirsty, and they gave her a cup of wine, and as she was drinking it, a mayfly flew into the cup, and she drank it down with the wine. And presently she went into her sunny parlour, and her 50 maidens along with her, and she fell into a deep sleep. And in her sleep, Lua, Law of Other, appeared to her, and she said, "It is I myself as the mayfly that came to you in the cup. And it is with me you must come away now, and your 50 maidens along with you." And she put on them the appearance of a flock of birds. And they went with him southwards, till they came to Brún na Boine, the dwelling place of the Sidhe. And no one at Aonmacca could get tale or tidings of them, know where they had gone or what had happened to them. It was about a year after that time. There was another feast at Aon, and Cuchulainn and his chief men were sitting at the feast. And suddenly they saw from the window a great flock of birds that lit on the ground and began to eat up everything before them, so that not so much as a blade of grass was left. The men of Ulster were vexed when they saw the birds destroying all before them, and they yoked 9 of their chariots to follow after them. Cuchulainn was in his own chariot, and there were following with him Fergus, son of Rove, and Lyra Buadach, the battle winner, and Cealthar, son of Ithcar, and many others, and Bricru of the bitter tongue was along with them. They followed after the birds across the whole country southward, across Sliabh Fua, by all Yahan, by all Garach and Má Gosa, between Firush and Firardale, and the birds before them always. They were the most beautiful that had ever been seen. 9 flocks of them there were, linked together 2 and 2 with a chain of silver. And at the head of every flock, there were 2 birds of different colours, linked together with a chain of gold. And there were 3 birds that flew by themselves, and they all went forever until the fall of night. And then there was no more seen of them. And just very briefly then, that was the night that Cuchulainn was born, and obviously Bird brought his uncle Cruhor to him. But also Bird featured in his death. And I'm just really quickly read this, and I apologize for no view. So Cuchulainn was in the middle, at the end of his final battle. He went to the river. Then he gathered up his bowels into his body, and he went down to the lake. He drank a drink, and he washed himself, and he turned back again to his death. And he called to his enemies to come and meet him. There was a pillar stone west of the lake, and his eye lit on it. And he went to the pillar stone, and he tied himself to it with his breastbelt, the way he would not meet his death lying down, but would meet it standing up. Then his enemies came around him, but they were in dread of going too close to him, for they were not sure that he might still be alive. Then the grey of Macha came back to defend Cuchulainn as long as there was life in him, and the hero light was shining above him. Then a bird came and settled on his shoulder. Then Louis came and lifted up Cuchulainn's hair from his shoulders and struck his head off. And the men of Ireland gave 3 great, heavy shouts. Gramina Mongav, Sloan.
Thanks, Dominic. Can you hear us? You can?
Yes, I can. Yes.
You probably
Yeah. Sorry you can't see me, but...
Yeah. For those who don't know, here in Wexford, we call the Banshee the Bow. And no matter where you go in Wexford, especially mid to North Wexford and into South Wicklow, South Carlow, East Kildare, we'd always call the Banshee the Bow. And the bow would take the form of a bird and should always come to announce a death. And that statue, the famous Oliver Shepherd statue that you'd find in the GPO, the same man who carved the pikeman in Wexford town, Oliver Shepherd has a statue of Cuchulainn in GPO of the bird landed on Cuchulainn's shoulder. And that same word survives. And it's also funny, again, I'll go back to Newfoundland again. In Waterford, they call the Banshee the Bibe. And in Kenneth Wickens can tell you whatever, they still use that word over there for, the Bibe. I travelled over with the Waterford ones. So it's mad way that story still survives and it still has a linger over in Newfoundland. I can't help but think of Joe O'Connor when I hear you, Dominic. Joe, can you hear me?
I can indeed, Mick.
Yeah, how are you getting on?
I'm not doing too badly at all now. Not doing too badly.
Good.
In the sunny West Clare.
Good.
Now, let me see. In thinking of a few things, there's a reference to a bird in this one. There's also a reference to a great singing pub. It's the tribute I wrote for the late Jimmy Murray, who captained Roscommon to All Ireland Glory in '43 and in '44. He was also a great singer, and his pub was home to the South Roscommon singers for several years. And I got to know him some years before he died. And when he did, when he died about, I think maybe 10 or 11 years ago, I wrote this. The sky was swollen with darkening rain clouds. The winter's day dawned grey and cold. A lone bird sang in mourning for you, James E. Murray, the greatest gale to wear the blue and gold. When you led Roscommon to All Ireland Glory, in '43 and in '44, there were scenes of joy and great jubilation, the likes of which we'd ne'er seen before. And 'twas many a time for a singing session to Knockrockry the long trip we'd make, just to hear you sing with such pride and passion, Old Skibbereen and the West's Wake. 10 years the good Lord gave you, and you sang your songs right to the end. You welcomed us all to each singing session. It makes me proud that you called me friend. Now that you've achieved your greatest glory in our heavenly home where God calls his own, with your head held high, you will lead your teammates in a lap of honor around God's green lawn. Cashmanach tuing Ardeen an Fortish, a Canoran in Maston Nave, so Redigar Sir Knoch and Crocre, Gillian Craig Hadrum, the Cullen Shave. Now, if I may do another little one that I wrote in memory of a man in whose company we heard the dawn chorus many a time, a Curry Clare man called Marty Marnan, who would be well known to many singers. And when Marty died about 7 or 8 years ago, I wrote this. When March winds blew and flowers had bloomed and spring had come once more, God called home Marty Marnan to that bright eternal shore. I rejoiced that he had joined his pals in that land beyond the sky, Milltown's Michael Mahoney and my Astra's crotty boy. For 40 years I knew him as a true and cherished friend. We travelled, sang and played great tunes and hoped nights would never end. Our friendship grew as years sped by. Our lives were full of fun in the company of Bully, Curry Clare's own favourite son. As I stood beside your graveside and I spoke words from the heart, I struggled to hold back my tears. It was so hard to part. We'll remember you forever and the great times we enjoyed till we meet again some future day when we cross the great divide. When Frank O'Brien in exile was missing friends and home, he wrote that song that touched the hearts of all who had to roam. His words became an anthem among the good folk there when Marty Marnan sang the chapel gates of Curry Clare. Now when each month we gather in O'Keefe's to sing a song, we reminisce on days now past and the good friends that are gone. We'll never forget those happy times as down life's path we stray. May God rest you, Marty Marnan. We're glad you passed this way. My good.
Lovely, Joe.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Lovely,
Yeah.
Joe. Absolutely. Isn't it interesting the way we do it all over the country? Every village and town, the Cuchulainn figures become our sporting heroes become the Cuchulainn figures, or our local characters, and that same way of remembering them, and those, like in your first thing there about man from the crockery, the footballer.
Indeed.
The bird coming, the announcer of death again, you know? Yeah. I can't help but think when you mentioned the chapel gates of Curry Clare, there's a man in the audience here whose father,
He knows who he is.
His father made those gates.
Yeah.
Where's Senan Lillis gone? Hey. Senan, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I'm a bit speechless after hearing that.
Oh, I see. I can see the emotion on your face.
Yeah, Marty Marnan died 9 years in March, Joe. Last March. It'll be 10 years next March, yeah. And we're hoping to have a weekend in his honour again in next March. Please God, hopefully we'll all be okay for that, yeah.
Yeah, by then, surely.
Yeah. Anyway, when I was thinking about this thing today out from my walk, I was thinking of different birds, and there's an old saying, it takes a village to rear a child, and I was reared in a village, and there was various people, I suppose, who taught us different things. You know, once we opened the door in the morning and left, very often we only came back to eat, you know, and the people taught us how to fish and how to snare rabbits and how to swim and how to play football and how to dance. But there was also one particular man who taught us about nature, in particular about the different wildflowers and the birds and the trees and the bees, if you like. Was he lived about a mile outside the village, and he always sat on the bridge, and whenever you passed, he would talk to you about something, and certainly about birds. And anytime we ever went to the bog, which was about a mile back to Dangan Road, as we called it, back to the west of the parish. He would walk with you because he lived back there actually. And every house, every tree, every bush, every barking dog, every pothole, there was a story about it really. But as regards the birds, certainly Kelly's, Joe would know the Kellys, Gerard Kelly and Helen Kelly. They lived in Thomond House, and there was always trees around it, and it was always full of crows. Now, I'm sure there were rooks, and I'm sure there were jackdaws, and I'm sure there were all sorts. But to us, there were crows, and basically they were black, and they were bigger than the blackbird, but they were crows. And you spoke about the bow there. I never had the word bow until I came to Wexford, but certainly we always, that man would tell us that there were crows in there that were actually banshees, and that he had heard the banshee. And anytime I ever hear anybody talking about the banshee, I hear of John Conway, and I can still hear him telling us about the crows. He would talk about the robin's nest. He would talk about how the robin got its color from, because when Jesus was dying on the cross, the robin landed on the cross. The robin was a grey bird at that stage, and he basically sang a tune while our Lord died. And he's the only bird that had when the robin sang, he could sing melodies that would last a half an hour, unlike any other bird. And that's the reason why, obviously, the blood of our Lord became the robin's redbreast as such. And from there on out, that particular bird had a redbreast. The wren, of course, with the wren bison, I don't have to tell you about the wren bison, the importance of that, and certainly the prevalence of the wren bison. It's still going on in West Clare. We've all done it. The ran, the king of the birds, St. Stephen's Day was cutting the furs up at the kettle and down with the pan. Give me a penny to bury the ran. We even heard that there a few minutes ago from Newfoundland. That's a kind of an italics version, a synopsis of what we heard a half an hour ago. But when we went to the bog, down to the lower bog, as we called it, which was, I suppose, as the crow flies, maybe 2.5 miles from the sea. And the sea was very much, we could smell the sea, we could almost taste the sea at some stage. But the curlew is the one bird which, I suppose, the cuckoo is associated with bringing good weather and bringing good news in one sense. The curlew was always associated with bringing bad news, bad weather. And if you heard the curlew, you never saw the curlew, even though the curlew nested in the phenolic. The phenolic was the old grass, which was more or less dead in the bogs. They nested there, even though they were a migratory bird. They migrated from Northern Europe somewhere. They obviously nested in Ireland. You never saw the curlew, but you heard the curlew. And I remember this particular man just telling us that curlews always traveled in groups of 7. And that 6 of them would sing, and that he was able to distinguish. Now, this is total fallacy, of course. He was able to distinguish any of the 6, but he never ever heard the 7th one singing. If the 7th one was heard, the end of the world was nigh. And even though there were 7 up there somewhere, you heard 6, but you never heard the 7. The curlew I think is almost as an endangered species now as indeed is the corncrake. And when we were kids, when you would hear the curlew, we would say to my father, basically, because we all hated being in the bog and the work and break your back and all this, cutting turf and turning turf and footing turf. And we would hear the curlew, and we say, it's time to go home, Dad, the rain is coming. And he would say, no, he says, that's only a warning for sailors. And I didn't really know what he meant, but subsequently I learned that sailors were always in dread of the curlew. That if a sailor or a man at sea heard the curlew, it meant bad weather, which we all knew, but it also meant storms. And of course, they would head for land if that was possible, if there was land anywhere near at all. Yeats has a little poem about the curlew. He reproves the curlew is the title of the poem. O curlew, cry no more in the air, or only to the water in the west. Because your crying brings to my mind passion-dimmed eyes and long, heavy hair that was shaken over my breast. There's enough evil in the cry of the wind. So evil and things bad, if you like, were what we associated with the curlew. Whereas the cuckoo was the opposite. I actually heard the cuckoo last week and I heard it again today. So it is in Wexford as well, which is brilliant. And on a much lighter note, there's a brother of mine living up the Midlands, and he was training a football team a few years ago in Carlow. He was telling me a story about there was 3 sisters, and they were all divorced, and they were living in 3 beautiful houses on the outskirts of Carlow town. And 3 brothers who were on this football team decided that they moved in one after the other, one with the 3 different women. But the boys on the team call them the cuckoos, because the cuckoo's associated with taking up somebody else's nest. So that's a kind of a funny one. So anyway, there you go. That's all about I could sing what Nancy Hogan's Goose has mentioned about Marty Mann. I should have been singing. What the hell? We did it a few years ago in the Bird song, at the Bird Song Project. And I remember down a little place, most beautiful place up in the Cumbraes called Cooldersmere. So this is Marty Mannon, and with the song. I was associated with Con Graney had a different version of this, and PC Welsh from up around Mullock. Joe would know exactly who I'm talking about there. So, oh, come all you gentle muses, if you listen now, you'll surely hear about this great calamity that had happened in this present year. Been thinking of no harm down to Brogan's door, I steered my route, where I met with Halpin's gander, and he tipping Nancy Hogan's goose. Now you all know dear old Nancy, she has the devil's own old tongue. She swore by all the popes in Rome, she'd surely have this gander hung. You will not hang my gander, for the goose herself is more to blame. She goes out every morning, and upon me soul she is out for game. The police they came next morning, and they brought the gander off to jail. And in spite of all his pleading, he wouldn't get out even with strong bail. The gander lay in his prison cell until his trial day came on, and Nancy prosecuted him, and against him she swore right was wrong. The jury found him guilty, and the judge said, me by, you can't go loose. You'll get 7 years transportation for casbinating Nancy Hogan's goose. When the gander heard his sentence passed, well, he looked the judge straight in the face, saying, is it for doing my duty that I must leave my native place? If I didn't do my duty, the story would be 10 times worse. All the eggs would all be gluggers, and I'd have Nancy Hogan's curse. When the judge he heard those feeling words, well, he said, me by, I'll set you free, but when you go home to Brogan's door, be sure and shun bad company. When I go home to Brogan's door, I'll stuff myself with oats and grass. Then I'll stuff Nancy Hogan's goose when I get Nancy gone to mass. So come all you geese and ganders, turkey cocks and drakes likewise, now be sure and shun night walking, or you could be in for a big surprise. You'll be tried for doing your duty, like Halpin's gander when he broke loose, and got 7 years transportation for Connick and Nancy Hogan's goose. Sinead.
Woo! Stuffing Nancy Hogan's goose.
Casbinating is a new word in the Oxford dictionary from now on.
Yeah. And there's a lovely word you mentioned there as well. You'd have it a glugger. It's the egg that wouldn't hatch.
It was an unfertilized egg, yeah.
Yeah, glugger. Yeah, it's a great word. Lovely. Come here. I'm taking when the name. We could stay here all night, but we can't. But there's a couple. We've got about 2 or 3 people who would like to get to. We asked to come along. There's a mention of Seamus Brogan there. And there's a mention of Brogan in your song, Senan. Is Seamus Brogan there at all? Do you have anything in Hall? Where's he gone? Seamus Brogan. Can you see Seamus Brogan, anyone? Bum, 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 bum. There you go.
The wave actually helps.
The wave works. How are we getting on there?
Yeah, good. Very good. Yeah, I was laughing at that song. Well done there, Senan. I was thinking earlier on, talking about the birds. I used to shoot pheasants when I was living back in Ireland. Used to do a lot of shooting. And there was a great character lived up in Monaghan one time. A lot of the lads there will know him. He would have been a granduncle of Paul O'Reilly's. Dick Riley was his name. He lived in Monaghan. But Jim Shield and I were out one Sunday morning shooting up around the Monaghan area. And it was one of the mornings that we got no pheasant. And we'd be going back and we'd be walking up by Dick's house, and he'd look out every morning. And of course, if you had the pheasant, you'd have the bag across your shoulder and the pheasant's tail would be sticking up out of the bag. So Dick was hanging over the gate and we going up, and he looked out and there was no sign of any tail feathers. And he said, "I see the feathers flew away with the mate again." But I was saying earlier on there to Mick, I was looking to see if I had any song about birds, and about 7 or 8 years ago, I'm on the provincial council of Coatis here in Britain, and we had a provincial council meeting in the chairman's house, who was Michael Nevin at the time, a Galway man living in Edmonton in North London. And he had bought, his wife does a lot of baking, and Michael decided that he was going to buy her a half a dozen chickens so that he'd have plenty of fresh eggs. And he'd built a new chicken coop and a chicken house. And the day we were up at the meeting, he took us down, a lovely sunny day, and he took us down the bottom of the garden and he was showing us the chickens inside. And the house that he had built for the chickens, he had a plaque on the front of it, and he had called it Peckingham Palace, the chicken house. So one of the guys that was with us said, "God, there must be a song in that somewhere." Well, when the meeting was over, I lived about an hour, maybe an hour and a quarter away from Michael's house. And by the time I got home, there was an email on my computer with a song that Michael had written about the chickens. And he called the song The Chickens in Christine's Backyard. Christine was his wife. He called the song The Chickens in Christine's Backyard. And he asked me, would I sing the song if he entered it in the newly composed ballads competition. So I said, yes, I'll sing it. And actually sang it and won the All-Britain flag, and actually got third in the All-Ireland with this song. So he was well delighted with himself. Anyway, I'm going to I have the song. I'm going to pull the song up on the screen here. I hope it. Can you all still see me on there? Because I'm looking at the song. So anyway, here goes. There's a place we call Peckingham Palace, and it's under the conifer tree. It houses 3 beautiful damsels, the likes of which you've never seen. There's Duchess and Pippa and Queenie, and they're held in the highest regard. They don't have no airs or no graces. They're the chickens in Christie's backyard. The girls, they are champion diggers. The flower beds were lost long ago. But then if you want your eggs free range, you just have to go with the flow. Now Queenie and Duchess love scratching.
Hello, Seamus. We've lost you. Hello. Hello, folks. Can the rest of you hear us? Yeah. Poor old Queenie and Itchy and Scratchy
Queenie and Duchess.
They're gone.
They keep scratching.
We'll leave. We're going to park it there for a second, right? Seamus will come back. I see someone there. I just put up, does anyone from Newfoundland know Tom Tobin's Dicky Bird? And I've been, do you know it, Kenneth, do you? Hang on there. This is a fantastic song.
Dan is looking for it. We were trying to round up someone with it.
We're going to get back to Seamus in a while once he comes
For
back.
a dozen a day.
I'm at mute now, sir. 1 second. Okay,
Now.
we lost you for a bit there, Seamus.
We lost you after Queenie and Duchess kept scratching, and you were clear as anything until then, and then it just went. And you're going in and out now too on us. We might not get you back, Seamus.
Where are you going, Seamus? Sugar.
Go again, Mick.
No.
We can see you again now.
We have you again, Seamus. No.
Okay.
We have you now.
All right. So where did you lost me?
It was after Queenie and Duchess kept scratching or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Just bear with me then for a sec.
Yeah.
So am I still on there? Yeah.
Yeah, we have you.
Working perfect now.
Yeah. Okay. Now Queenie and Duchess love scratching, with ease the large stones they discard, and Pippa's for deep excavations. They're the chickens in Christine's backyard. Sure, I'm eating 3 boiled eggs for breakfast, and I'm eating 3 poached eggs for tea, and I'm eating an omelette for supper, because fried eggs don't agree with me. For the girls, they could lay for old Ireland. We oft times have kept the scorecard. For a dozen a day is the average from the chickens in Christine's backyard. Now the fox is so hungry and cunning, and the girls have a special appeal. He'd love to get inside their hen house and have himself a tasty meal. But the palace is strongly defended from foxes and other blackguards. He'll have to find easier pickings than the chickens in Christine's backyard. Their father, he came from Rhode Island. Their mother from Sussex she came. And after a very brief romance, were hatched out these 3 lovely dames. Now an egg has a yolk which is golden, and Christine has gold in her heart. They'll never go wanting for kindness, those chickens in Christine's backyard. Now Christine is sweet and she's loving, and she loves those red-feathered 3. But I'm beginning to think they're the reason that Christine is not loving me. I haven't had meat for 6 months now. I'm just getting more eggs boiled hard. So tomorrow I think I'll be cooking those chickens from Christine's backyard.
James. That's lovely.
There you go.
There we have it now. Listen, we're half an hour over, and we're getting to the end, right? I'm just a couple of people here I'd like to get to. The 2 Newfoundland people here, I'm just going to mention to Kenneth and Mallory. I see you're rooting out the words of Tom Tobin's Dicky Bird there. If you find it, would you sing it for us, will you? Because the people would love it here. I know Senan would probably love to hear it. Hang on there. Wait, can you hear it, Senan?
I can hear you, yeah.
Kenneth.
I know it's it's like one of those things that you know is part of the words. Because there's a song saying, what's it? Diddle deedle diddle dum diddle deedle do. Was it? It's diddle deedle diddle Tom Tobin's Dicky Bird.
Hang on there. Dan Dobber over in Newfoundland as well has the words.
Now, I reckon Dan might actually.
I'll unmute a few of the Newfoundland people. Hang on there. Dan, where's Dan gone? Can you wave your hand there, Dan?
Dan is up here.
Up there.
He have the words. Look, he have the words there. Look.
Yeah, folks.
Over.
Actually, I just this morning, because that was one of the songs, of course, you mentioned in your Zoom thing. Yeah. So I just went YouTube and actually copied down the words actually, and that was the first time really that I took any notice to that song, really.
Yeah.
But I did transcribe the words.
Is there any way at all you could send the words to Kenneth there and Mallory?
Mallory has the words.
Did you
I'll
treat
do it.
You do it.
I'll do a duet with Mallory if they send me the words.
Do you want me to try it?
Ask your rooster. Yeah, if you have it there. I know the tune.
Do you want me to try it?
Yeah, send it out.
Lord.
Okay, here it goes.
I know the tune.
Ready?
I'll try it. Like I say, I didn't know it until this morning, so yeah, but
Okay.
bear with me.
Bear with
It's
us,
my
guys.
first time on Zoom as well, so. Come all you friends and comrades, this story I must tell. It's all about a family in friendship they did dwell. There was Tom and Don and Josh and John and Julie, 23, and a cockeyed pullet Dickie Bird made up the family. 'Twas the middle of November or somewhere thereabout. The family barred up their home and traveled to the south. Says Tom, 'twill cost me 50 cents his passage for to pay. Now 'twill take my Dickie Bird while I will go away. Well, Tommy met Tom Hurley, and this he did say. You'll take my hen and Dickie Bird while I am gone away. Oh, Tom, you got a clever dick, likewise a handsome hen. And yes, I'll take your Dickie Bird till you come back again. Well, Tommy ran into the house to break the news to Em. I got Tom Tobin's Dickie Bird till he comes back again. If I shall go to the northeast point or to the southern end, this rooster will be company till I get back again. Well, Em, she clapped her tiny hands and shouted out with joy. Oh, Tom, you think so much of me, you great big handsome boy. Go get your hammer and your saw and build for him a crib. I long to see that rooster, I know he must be big. Well, Tom brought in the rooster and laid him on the floor. And Em declared she never saw the like of it before. She said she never saw the like, nor never heard she heard of a rooster any bigger than Tom Tobin's Dickie Bird. Well, Em, she loved the rooster, she loved to see him stand. She used to pat his foamy head and take him in her hand. The rooster, he enjoyed the sport with pleasure he did share on the wife of Thomas Hurley when Tom Hurley wasn't there. Well, Tom, he went to Em and said, I cannot understand. How can you love the rooster of another married man? Oh, Tom, I love the rooster, I'm not despising you. You know you're rooster number one, there's rooster number two. Well, the rooster, he got saucy, as you may understand. And he had to be beheaded by a jealous-minded man. We all sat round the table with our dish and spoon to scoop, and had to fill our bellies
Full of
saucy rooster stew.
Good man, Dan.
Good man, Dan.
I suspected when he got the word, or when he was looking for it,
Yeah.
I had this suspicion.
That's your same area as your Kenneth as well, isn't it?
I was looking for, but see, all the songs were on radio, but that's a popular song.
Yeah,
Joel Philomene used to sing it on our radios. Yeah, it was. Yeah, your father knew too, don't he? Yeah, he. It's a foolish one that is pretty popular around Newfoundland, right?
Lovely. Come here, we're coming towards the end tonight. We're going to have two more people. Lads, I'm sorry I can't get everyone. We just don't have the time. We've got 3 girls down below who need to be put to bed, and we said we'd finish at 9:30. But just to let you know that we're doing one more big session on next Friday. It's the 1st of May, and we're actually doing a whole event around the May bush. We're going to actually do some virtual May bush decoration. So will you join us? It'll be a mixture of song and tunes and a real mixed bag of a night. So will you text us come Thursday or Friday for a new password, and we let you in again. And we will be doing more of these. We're going to be doing a whole more series of children singing sessions as well. We did one on Sunday, which was brilliant. We had loads of young people. It was lovely, an early session. with young people from all over the country, and also from the States and from Canada, singing songs. It was just magic. So listen, thanks a million for your time. There's one man here who's been hanging here all evening, and it's Mick Doyle up in Gorey. Where's Mick Doyle?
There he is.
And Mick Doyle, how are you getting on?
I'm very well, thanks, and I'm after thoroughly enjoying my hanging here.
Good to hear.
It has been a very pleasant evening,
Yeah.
and I never heard so many songs about birds in my lifetime.
Yeah.
I don't have a song about birds, but I have a little story that happened 56 years ago this week. The great King George V chase between Arkle and Millhouse. The great Dominic Bean made a song of it, but I converted it to a recitation because I didn't like the song. So if you bear with me for a minute, I'll give you the story of the race between Arkle and Millhouse. It happened in the springtime. The year was 64. English men were making pounds and fivers by the score. He beat him in the hollows and he beat him on the bumps, and a pair of fancy fetlocks he showed him more the jumps. Oh, he's English, English as you've seen, a little bit of Arab stock and more from Stephen's Green. Now take a look at Millhouse and stick out your chest with pride. He's the greatest steeplechaser in the English countryside. Then a quiet man called Draper, who lived in the Emerald Isle, said that horse of yours called Millhouse, he shows a bit of style. But I have a little fellow, and Arkle is his name. Put your money where your mouth is, and we'll play the racing game. Well, the English racing gentlemen all laughed till fit to burst. You've tried before, Tom Draper, but then you came off worst. If you think your horse can beat us, you're running short on rein, for it's Millhouse that you're up against, and not those beastly Danes. Well, Arkle now is 5-2, Millhouse is money on. They're off, and dear, I do believe the champion hasn't won. There are other horses in the race to test the great chap's might, but dear me, it's plain to see the rest are out of sight. With 3 to go, still he comes, great glory in his stride. He's the greatest steeplechaser in the whole world wide. With 2 to go, and still he comes, he leads by 20 lengths. Brave Arkle's putting in a show, poor chap, he's all but spent. With 2 to go, Brave Arkle is cutting down the lead, but it's all over, bar the shouting, for he hasn't got the speed. We're on the run up to the last, my Christ, can we hold out? Will you look behind you, Willie Robinson, man, what are you about? We're at the last and over, and Pat Taffra's more in hand, and he's passing England's Millhouse, the finest in the land. By God, he has us beaten, and what can we English say? But the ground was wrong, and the race was long, too early in the day.
Thanks a million, Mick.
Thanks, Mick.
And it's actually St. George's Day today for any English friends. It's their patron saint's day. Listen, is Niall Wall there at all? Is Niall around still?
There he is. There's Niall. Yep.
Hey.
Hi, Niall.
Niall.
Oh.
Good. Will you end the evening with a song for us?
Right. Well, I sing a bit of the Blackbird, the Royal Blackbird. It's probably one of the oldest songs in English in the canon of Irish traditional singing, written about Bonnie Prince Charlie. And this version of it go back even to his father, so it goes back to the 1600s. It's about 8.5 minutes long, so I'll sing a couple of verses of it. Is that okay?
Perfect, yeah.
Of a fair summer's morning out for soft recreation, I spied a blackbird making great moan, with sighing and sobbing and sad lamentation, crying, "Oh, my blackbird most royal has flown. My thoughts, they deceive me, reflections do grieve me, and I am overburdened by sad memory. But if death it should blind me, or true love inspire me, My blackbird I'll seek out wherever she be. Once in fair England my blackbird did flourish. He was the great flower that in it did spring. Prime ladies of honor, they did him nourish, for he was the true son of the king. Now this false fortune, which still is uncertain, has caused a great parting between him and me. Yet he's nigh my advance in Spain or in France, and I'll seek out my blackbird wherever he be. It is not the ocean that frights me with danger, though alas, like a pilgrim I wander forlorn. I may meet with kindness from them who are strangers, more than from him who in England was born. O heaven so spacious, to Britain be gracious, though some there be odious, to him and to me. May laurels and renown and laurels all crown my blackbird with honor wherever he be. There you go.
Good man, Niall.
Lovely, Niall. Now, listen, lads. Yeah, we have we've got 3 little girls who are outside in the camper van waiting for us to go camping with them, but they've snuck in. And since you're in here, we're actually going to end with the girls have a song, and we'll end with this, and we'll say goodnight to you all, and we'll go to put together the girls to bed. Will we do that?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I promise some sweets tomorrow. I always promise sweets tomorrow, lads. Say hello to everyone.
Hello. Now, Effie, could you come in here?
Yeah, no.
I'll just put in your chair.
Can you all see them? Yeah, perfect. No.
Nelly will do it that way, look. Okay.
1 second.
So,
Ready to go, Aileen?
we're
Ready
going
to go?
to do the Robin song,
Yeah,
is it?
yeah, go on, yeah.
So this is a song called the Robin Song that Mick wrote a couple of years ago for the Songs for Our Children project we were doing. So Nelly knows this better than me, don't you now? Sometimes we swap the verses around a bit. Anyway, I think we have a version. I think we know what we're doing, do we? Yeah, we'll go with this. Have a bit written out here. No, that's crossed out. Yeah? All right.
Every morning at the break of day, a little robin comes my way, chirps on my window night and day, and this is what I have to say. Robin, oh Robin, what do you sing? What fine news do you bring? Robin, oh Robin, up in your tree, will you sing your little song for me? Last night Miss Badger crossed the road. She was nearly killed stone cold, trying to cross a busy road. and that she won't cross anymore. Robin, oh Robin, what do you sing? What fine news do you bring? Robin, oh Robin, up in your tree, will you sing your little song for me? Did you hear about Mr. Fox? Chased by hounds and almost caught, ran from miles in the cold deep snow, hasn't come home and is hiding low. Robin, oh Robin, what do you sing? What fine news do you bring? Robin, oh Robin, up in your tree, will you sing your little song for me? Did you hear about Mr. Frog? Someone's drained his little bog, and now there's nowhere left to spawn, and the croaking choir is forever gone. Robin, oh Robin, what do you sing? What fine news do you bring? Robin, oh Robin, up in your tree, will you sing your little song for me? Did you hear about the owl ash tree, where the little bird sang so free? Cut down on a fine spring day, and now there's nowhere left to lay. Robin, oh Robin, where are you gone? With your news, your friends and song. Robin, oh Robin, from the owl ash tree, will you come back and sing for me?
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thanks a million.
Well done,
I'm
girl.
going to unmute you all and just to hear the noise of everyone. So,
Big round of applause for everybody tonight. That was lovely. Variety and selection.
Yay! Hi, Gavin.
You, Bertha.
Good, good. Glad to be here.
let you go, so we'll put the chaps to bed. So good night, and we'll talk to you next Friday, not Thursday, Friday.
Friday night for the
Thank you very much, Mick and Aileen.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Aileen.
Lovely to see you all.
Bye.
Thank you so much.